The ancient clock tower struck 11:30 on Christmas Eve, its deep chimes barely audible through the thickening snow, a quiet reminder of the season's solitude. Theodore, a large mixed-breed dog with soulful brown eyes and a burnished copper coat, paused in his tracks. His ears twitched, catching an unfamiliar sound on the bitter wind, a baby's cry, weak but unmistakable, carried through the night. It shouldn't have been there, especially not on this holy night, and certainly not in the cold. Cautiously, Theodore approached, his large paws leaving deep prints in the fresh snow. Beneath the church's stone archway, partially sheltered from the wind, lay a woven basket, its fabric lining peeking over the edges like the quilt's human, Clara Bennett, carefully kept in her cedar chest. She had made them during her 40 years as a nurse in the hospital nursery. Another cry came, fainter this time, pulling Theodore closer. Inside the basket, wrapped in a thin receiving blanket adorned with faded yellow ducks, lay a newborn infant. The baby's face was red from crying, tiny fingers curled into fists against the cold. Pinned to the blanket was a handwritten note, already dampened by the snow. "Please help my baby. I have nothing to give her." Theodore whined softly, his breath creating small clouds in the freezing air. He knew cold. He remembered all too well the bitter winter night 3 years ago, when Clara had found him limping through her garden, abandoned and injured. Without hesitation, she had taken him in, cleaned his wounds, and named him Theodore because she said it meant God's gift, and finding him had been just that. Now, as he looked down at the shivering infant, Theodore knew he had to be someone else's gift tonight. The streets of Pine Grove were deserted, every window glowing with Christmas lights that barely penetrated the thickening storm. Garlands and wreaths adorned the doorways, and through curtained windows, Theodore could see the twinkling of Christmas trees. But tonight, the only sound was the howling wind. In better weather, carolers would be making their rounds, just as they had since Clara was a girl in the 1950s. But tonight, only the storm remained. Theodore thought of Clara. She was probably sitting in her favorite armchair beside the radio, listening to the Christmas Eve service she couldn't attend due to the weather. He had walked these streets countless times with her, sharing stories of her years in the nursery. But now, the baby's cries grew weaker, and Theodore knew he had to act quickly. With great care, he took the basket's handle in his mouth, testing his grip several times before finding a secure hold. The snow made it slick, but he lifted it gently, ensuring the baby remained stable. A gust of wind sliced through the street, carrying with it the sound of distant sirens. Theodore turned his head, spotting unfamiliar lights through the storm, bright, urgent flashes piercing the curtain of snow. They were coming from the direction of Mercy General Hospital, where Clara had spent decades helping to bring new lives into the world. Theodore stood at the crossroads. The basket handle was firm in his mouth, but awkward. To the right lay Clara's warm, cozy home. To the left, the lights from the hospital called to him. The clock tower chimed the quarter-hour time was running out. Taking a deep breath, Theodore made his choice and stepped into the storm. With each step, the snow deepened, the wind stronger. Theodore pressed forward, the basket swaying gently in his mouth, the baby's whimpers growing fainter. He thought of Clara's words from that long-ago night when she had first found him. Sometimes, God puts us exactly where we need to be, exactly when we need to be there. Those words pushed him forward as he navigated through Pine Grove's empty streets. He passed familiar landmarks: the Woolworths building, now Morton's department store with its old mechanical Santa, and Henderson's pharmacy, where Clara had once shared stories over root beer floats. Each stop was a fleeting memory, but Theodore's mission was clear: get the baby help. Halfway to the hospital, Theodore paused beneath the awning of Henderson's pharmacy. Desperation surged as he reached the door, but it was locked. The baby's cries had fallen silent, and Theodore's heart raced in panic. He had to act. With what little strength he had left, Theodore stood on his hind legs, scratching at the glass with his claws. His barks echoed through the empty hall, reaching Margaret's ears. She looked up, squinting through the snow-covered window. At first, confusion flashed across her face, but then her eyes widened in recognition. The door swung open, and Theodore nudged the basket forward with his nose. Inside, Margaret cradled the baby, her hands trembling as she rushed toward the emergency department. The hospital's team went into action, their movements swift and efficient. It wasn't long before the baby's faint cry echoed in the room. Theodore watched quietly from the corner. Soon, Clara arrived, her silver hair tucked under a hand-knitted cap, rushing into the emergency room with a mix of exhaustion and concern. As the night unfolded, the baby was stabilized, and the story of Theodore's incredible journey spread quickly. The mother, Jessica Miller, was soon located in a nearby shelter, ill with fever and despair. But Clara, with her years of experience, knew exactly what to do. "First," she said, sitting beside Jessica, "we get you well, and then we figure out the rest together." The baby, now stable, was named Hope. A year later, on Christmas Eve, Theodore lay beside Hope's playmat, watching her giggle as she reached for the tree ornaments. Clara sat with Jessica, laughing, as the baby reached up, her tiny hand clutching the special tag now on Theodore's collar engraved with the words, "Every journey begins with love." That Christmas, as Theodore lay contentedly by the fire, he thought about how love and care had shaped his journey, and how the love that started with one small act had built a family. It reminded everyone that the greatest gifts often come with 4 paws and a heart of gold.